community, I'm Lily Hevish, and today I'll be teaching you how to build a crossing speed wall. So get your dominoes and let's start building. The crossing speed wall is an awesome domino effect, and I use this in my new personal record video with the double DNA speed walls kind of crossing through each other multiple times. I've gotten a ton of requests to make the tutorial about this trick, so here it is. I hope it helps. I'm using 200 dominoes today, and I might need more depending on how big I decide to make it, but just keep in mind this is a little bit more of an advanced trick that builds off of the normal speed wall. I actually did a tutorial on this back last year with Joseph's Machine. If you missed that, I definitely recommend watching that over here first. But in case you need a refresher, we will go through this one more time. We're gonna place dominoes upright, and the spacing should be about 1 domino length apart. Now that is from edge to edge of the domino. You can take another domino as like a ruler and put it against the standing dominoes and make sure that these edges from front to back are the same length as this domino. So keep measuring. You can move your guide. So now that you have the first layer done, all of these are 1 domino length apart exactly. We're gonna take some more dominoes and we're gonna put them halfway between the dominoes that we've already placed. Now it's really important that the spacing, especially for this first layer, is pretty even and pretty precise. Make sure you've measured it really well, and then you'll be set up to make a really large speed wall that's fairly accurate and should hopefully work. Wonderful. So now that we have that, we're gonna put flat dominoes on top of the domino line, and we're going to skip a domino each time. So I'm gonna skip this blue one, put it on the red, skip this blue one again. Now we're gonna add dominoes on top of this layer, on top of the flat dominoes here. And now what we're gonna do, instead of building this taller, we're going to start making the cross. We're gonna choose one of these flat dominoes to cross it over. I'm gonna choose this one right here. Let's say it'll topple this way, and then maybe it'll loop back around and then come back like this. So we want it to cross through this flat domino. I'm gonna take another color so it's a little bit easier to see. And we're gonna put this domino really close to the flat domino. There's just a little bit of space next to it, maybe a little bit less than 1 domino thickness right over here. And we're gonna put another one on the opposite side. Now the distance between this yellow domino and this yellow domino should also be 1 domino height, which is about 48 millimeters. Now we're gonna continue this 1 domino height spacing. So I'm gonna use this domino as a measurement and then place another yellow one. Same thing on this side, make it a little bit longer. And we're also gonna put more dominoes halfway in between these. The next step is pretty similar. We're gonna take dominoes and put them flat on the yellow dominoes. Make sure it's the one that's closest to the flat domino that you already placed in the first wall. So once we have this next layer, we're also going to put dominoes on top of this flat layer. So we'll put them on top like this. Now we can put another flat layer on top of these standing dominoes. Just make sure that when you place the domino, the flat one is over the 2 window gap. So I wouldn't put it right here, for example, because this only has 1 gap. I would put it over this gap because there isn't another layer of flat dominoes blocking it. And same thing for the other domino wall. And now you can kind of see how the wall is forming. We have first the red wall going this way, and then we have a yellow wall going in the perpendicular direction. So we're gonna continue this pattern. I'm gonna make this line just a little bit bigger so we can see it more. Now when you're building this trick, I recommend making the crossing point layer by layer, because if I were to build 1 domino wall first and then build the second one, I'd have to reach in between dominoes in an already built wall, which is pretty crammed for your hand and you might knock it down by accident. So build it as you go and go layer by layer. And now another flat domino layer. Now you want to make sure that you're putting the dominoes in the right direction. So as you're building, kind of visualize each wall as a separate entity, because I wouldn't want to put a domino here because that breaks the flow of the first wall, because I would need to put a domino actually right here instead, because there's 2 window gaps underneath that one. Now I recommend when you're making crossing speed walls to make it at least 5 layers high, and preferably more if you can, because that'll make it more reliable when it actually falls. If it's a shorter wall, it might not work all the way through because there aren't enough dominoes to fall and keep the chain going. So I'm gonna add 1 more layer to this yellow domino wall. And from here, we can decide to either have these domino walls be one wall or two walls. Right now, these are two different walls. First, the red one would fall, and then I could have a domino line sneak around and do the yellow side. Or we could connect the two and make a loop with the domino walls. So I'll show you how to turn the speed wall so you can connect the two walls and make a loop. We're gonna do that on this side. I'm gonna get some more yellow and red so it's a little bit easier to see than these white and blue dominoes. And just for your reference, this right here has a little bit over 100 dominoes so far. So to make the speed wall curve, we're gonna take another domino, add it to the end, about 1 domino length as well, but we're going to curve it this time. So for example, the distance from here to here is a little bit less than 1 height, but if I put the domino right here, it's a little bit greater than 1 domino height. So I'm gonna keep measuring this. Now I'm making sure that the measurement is now past the domino, so it's a little bit less on the inward side. So instead of like this, it's now like that. And I think I'm actually going to angle this one that we've already placed. That'll make it a little bit more of a perfect loop. Now, when you're making this curve, you want to make sure that it's not too sharp of a curve. Otherwise, it could lock up and just stop falling midway through. So when you're making these curves, gradual turns are better. You remember how in my domino line tutorial video, I said we want 4 angled dominoes in a 90-degree turn? That's pretty similar for a speed wall if you want to be safe. So we're going to use a few angled dominoes in this turn. For example, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 here until it goes back into the loop. I'm gonna make this a little less sharp actually, just to be even more safe. And the reason why I'm not putting the middle domino in between yet is because we might need to adjust these dominoes later on. For now, this is just gonna give us a rough idea of what the base might look like. So now we have an approximation of what the base looks like as part of this loop. And the tricky part when making speed walls sometimes is you have to make the right number of dominoes in the base to have it all line up. Otherwise, you might end up placing a domino here and then there's one left over, but there's no room to put that flat domino. So what you'll have to do is kind of imagine placing these flat dominoes on top. I could quickly visualize that just by putting them on the side like this. And we're gonna see if this matches up. So all these flat dominoes around it, imagine they would be placed on top. Oh, okay. So we've run into the problem here where we have one less or one too many dominoes for it to actually connect. Because if this domino here was placed on top of this, there would be no room for any of these dominoes. What we can either do is add another domino to the base or take away a domino from the base. Now, I think what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to add a domino because I don't want to make the curve any sharper than it needs to be. So I'm going to actually move this domino a little bit more back to the straight line and then shift around these other dominoes so I can add another red one. So this might take a little bit to adjust, but just keep fiddling with the dominoes till you get the right spacing and the right number of dominoes, and you'll be good to go. All right, so I've just fixed the base. Now, if I were to put these flat dominoes on top, it would finally match up and there wouldn't be any extra dominoes. So now that I know this base looks good, I'm going to place the dominoes halfway in between. Awesome, so now that this base layer is connected, all we have to do is continue the speed wall and finalize the connected loop. So now we can place these flat dominoes on top. And now we just continue building higher. Whew. There we go. Wow, this whole wall is like blocking. Right now it's at 5 layers high, and that's counted by the vertical dominoes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I think just to be extra safe, I'm gonna do one more layer on top. I'm also gonna extend the beginning of this first wall so that the height is the height of the crossing wall in between. We want at least a little bit of the same height before it crosses. Otherwise, if it crosses down here, there might not be enough dominoes to actually make it through the wall. All right, so this is the finished crossing speed wall. I'm just gonna add another domino line in front of the wall to start it. And we are good to go. So how does this crossing speed wall even work? Well, if you look really closely at this crossing point, the walls actually aren't connected. There is no red domino on top of a yellow domino, and there's no yellow domino on top of a red domino. All of the dominoes are crossing through the window gaps of the other wall. So because they're not connected, they don't fall early. And that's why when I topple the red one, it won't knock down the yellow one, hopefully, and it'll go through. 3, 2, 1, go. Perfect crossover. It didn't hit it early, it went all the way through, and that's it. And that's how you build a crossing speed wall. Definitely try this out. It's a lot of fun. It's a little bit more of a technique-based build, so make sure to go slow in your building. Be very careful and very precise. Now, if you need more dominoes or want to use the dominoes that I'm using, I will leave a link to my own H5 domino creation set down below in the description. To learn how to build more domino tricks, check out this playlist right over here. Today's featured community member is Not a Pumbaa on Instagram, and he is a 6-year-old builder who is doing amazing work. I am honestly blown away at the scale of the domino projects that he's creating at such a young age, and he's just doing a fantastic job. So well done, Not a Pumbaa. And that's it. I'm Lilia Hebish, and keep on building.